everybody. We can get started. So welcome to our kindergarten orientation webinar. Here we have our principal, Dr. Neil Lavitt, joining us today.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
We've also got Jen Palmervale. She's one of our kindergarten teachers. We've got Bryony, one of our office staff that you've probably chatted to over the phone as you've been busy enrolling. And we've got Noelle Bahaji, who is also one of our kindergarten teachers. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming along. It feels like there's a lot that's happened in between we last touched base, our last information session that we ran as a webinar. Would you agree, teachers? And yes, we've been very busy teaching our children from home, but also that has changed since then is we now have a date that we're coming back to school. So for kindergarten year 1 and year 2, we are coming back to school next week. And then the students in 3 to 6 are coming back the following week, and we could not be more excited. Would you agree, Neil?
Totally, absolutely. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, so it's when we're having our morning check-ins, we've been checking in daily with our kids using Microsoft Teams, and I guess the feeling of the team chats has really shifted this term. We just before it was very much about the routine, this is how we do things. Now it's just excitement. They cannot stop talking about seeing their friends. So we're here today to give you a little bit more information about the kindergarten orientation. Lots of things are going to be coming your way, and we've also got a bit of a chat around resilience from Noelle Bahaji, and also our principal will be giving a bit of an address. So we're just going to start off, and I'll pass to Jen.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. As Mrs. Fry mentioned, my name's Jen Palmervale, and I'm one of the kindergarten teachers at Cronulla South Public School this year. I'd like to start off with acknowledgement of country this morning. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land where the Aboriginal people have performed age-old ceremonies of storytelling, music, dance and celebration. I acknowledge and pay respect to the elders, past and present, and to those of the future, for they hold the memories, traditions and hopes of Aboriginal Australia. We must always remember that this land is, was and always will be traditional Aboriginal land.
Thanks, Jen. So now I'd like to welcome our principal, Dr. Neil Lavitt, just to give a bit of an introduction.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming along today. It's a little bit different from last year, and last year we actually held this same presentation at Cronulla RSL, and at that time we were right at the very tail end of that first COVID wave that hit us in from March onwards, and there wasn't really any big concerns, but everybody was being very careful. And of course, it was really nice just to be able to get everybody in a venue where we knew we could provide that presentation. We haven't quite met that this time, and that was one of those unfortunate realities around what we are going through right now, but it's all looking very positive going into the future. And Ms. Price has mentioned we're coming back to school next week. K-2 will be starting that journey, and of course that's exactly what we will be able to look forward to, being able to have an orientation for your children, which will be happening towards the end of the year. And next year we're looking at really got our fingers crossed on having a little bit more of a normal year as we go forward. So I might just get this next slide, please. So in terms of what I just mentioned about journeys, it's very much what the little piece that I want to talk about today. I always look at this perspective of your children coming to school, that the whole period from when those children are born, the journey that they take along that way, all the little bumps that happen along the way there are very, very much journeys. And of course, every child is different. And I'm sure those of you who have more than one child will know that that is very much the case, that there are very, very different obstacles, positives, victories, you name it, that happen along the way with that. And of course, as they go from baby to toddler to preschooler, to their first day at school, it's all new events on that journey, and they're very, very exciting, but they're also things which are for both adults and children perhaps challenging and difficult. Having said that, by working together with the school, we can make that challenge in terms of the transition to school really, really good. So next slide, please. So you're wondering my journey. So it's always nice to share your own journey with this. And this is me. On the left-hand side, you see me as a kindergarten age student. I think I was 5 years old when that picture was taken. And so I went to a little primary school in Cheshire in England called Cloverley Primary School. It was a smaller school than Cronulla South, even about 160 students at the time, a very new school, and set in some beautiful market garden environments with soccer pitches and, well, I should have called them football pitches. I could be told off if I was in England for doing that. And on the right-hand side there, you see that that picture. That was when I was in my final year of school, so the equivalent of year 6. And I'm sort of down in the center there, crouching down. I was part of a team which did very well at football. We were actually, for a small school, quite good. I might say not because of me. I was a defender, a left back, but we had some fantastic players in that team, and we all worked together. Those are the things that define us, and we remember. So next slide, please. Now, of course, as a parent, and I am a parent, and many of the teachers at this school are parents themselves. So we're all on that same journey as well. My own parent journey is a little bit different. My wife and I, Karen, we adopted a young boy from South Korea. His name is BK, which is a shortening of the word Pyongun, and he arrived with us, we went to Seoul, and we brought him back to Australia in 2012, in May of 2012, very memorable time. And on the left-hand side there, that's the start of my journey. I was a assistant principal at Strathfield South Public School, which is over in North Strathfield, and of course near Concord. And he's there with my class, which was 4L at the time, a lovely year 4 class. And they were all very, very excited to see him as I brought him in, as I was on adoption leave. And in the middle there is his first day of school. And so he's there at our front door, looking very excited about attending school. And then just on the right-hand side there, you see him in year 4. So these are all journeys, and they're all things which we remember. And, you know, very much what shapes us is about those journeys. So the next slide, please. So I want to talk about just a little bit of information about, perhaps not information, I guess, a little bit of advice, I guess, in some ways about that journey that you are taking. And the first of those big journeys is the 4th of February next year. And I guess there is a lot of advice that we can give you. There will be lots of people, particularly your preschoolers. Some of you will have been parents before and know a lot of this, but just remembering that every single child is different. It's important to consider that. But there are some really, really, really important things which I want to share with you in terms of from what I've observed from parents coming in, children coming in, and also myself with my own child BK going to school. Things like uniforms. Buying uniforms is great. It's nice to buy uniforms sometimes sooner rather than later, but sometimes just remember that kids grow. They actually grow really quickly, and they sometimes grow in spurts. And I've seen quite a few children whose parents have quite gleefully bought uniforms at this time of year, and then found that when they get to February, they're completely grown out of them, or they're so tight that they need to get some more uniforms. So not a bad idea to maybe buy one, because of course it is good practice to have that. Get them used to wearing those uniforms. Just remember, many of our preschools have uniforms as well. Things like paint shirts, the shoes. You've got to go with Velcro, believe me. The idea of having shoes with laces, particularly, it's sometimes they look nice, they look fantastic, very smart on the first day of school. But ask yourself the question, does your child know how to tie those shoes? I've met very few kindergarten children who are able to do that. And I want you to think about who is the person who's going to be tying those shoes, and what happens when they're not being tied, and when they go to the toilet, what happens to the laces that are untied as they walk into the toilet, go up to the, particularly boys here, going up to the urinals, they trail behind them. Please don't do it. Velcro is the way to go. You can get black shoes with Velcro, relaxed shoes with Velcro. I think there's lots of things there in terms of lunch boxes, all those things that are good to think about and get. Familiarity and positivity. It's really important, bring the school to your child to the school, the surroundings. You can just change your routines, walking past the school, talking about it. That's where we're going, using the same times. Think about coming past at break times if you can, so you can see and hear the children and make note of those times. And also think about, talk really positively about that journey. It's really anxious for children, very, very anxious time for children. I don't deny that one of the things that's actually noted, BK was a pretty confident child, and there was we were quite taken aback when he became quite anxious and stopped sleeping particularly well at that lead up to school. And what we actually found was it was actually about that period of change, and the fact that he was very aware of that change, and he was loved his preschool, which is a beautiful place. I live in Summerhill, beautiful little preschool, and he loved going there. That change for him was quite difficult. The closure that he got when he was able to say goodbye to them was all he needed. But in terms of supporting and knowing those things are going to be coming along, if you've got any advice from medical specialists as well, always good to talk to them at that time. Knowing that the communication with the school is great for that. And you all have interviews with either myself and Ms. Pryor, or both of us, in terms of that journey as well, an opportunity to talk about that. So those don't definitely stay in touch. It's about communication. Hopefully the very fact that you're all here tells us that you are on that journey in terms of communication, and you're interested in finding out more about what we do with the school. Stay in touch with our school website, through the school Zoom, through Facebook. Really, really, really useful. I mentioned there, as parents, we do get quite anxious. And that might be, even though you're a veteran of it. I know that with particular children who perhaps you've got more concerns about, it can be a little bit more of a concern. You've got that thing. So Noelle is going to talk to you about resilience, and that is really important. She'll definitely go into that a little bit more. But I urge you to try and relax, and don't sweat the small stuff. Be positive. And if you need to be anxious, go and be anxious somewhere else, away from the children at times when you can. That's actually good advice in terms of all matters relating to school. It's always good to say positive about school, and we can and communicate with us. Definitely can do that. And of course, students themselves, they are going to be anxious, but at the same time, we can definitely work through it. Next slide, please. And of course, just in terms, I'm not going to go into too much with this. That first week at school is a bright, shiny thing. It's an extremely exciting time for children, and it's not unusual for them to go to school, and in that first day or two that they're there, and as soon as the weekend hits, and then on the Monday it starts all again, they go, oh, really? Do I have to go back? I thought that was done. And of course, that's not unusual for kids. So that's when you might start to see that anxiety kicking in terms of coming back to school, because they might go, yeah, that was great, but I quite like being at home. It's actually interesting that that's one of the things which we are very aware of in terms of our transition back to school. We've got quite a lot of children we know will be very happy to have been staying at home. They've got quite used to it by now. and those routines and rituals that they've developed at home are quite familiar to them. So to now then take them back and put them back in the school is going to be quite difficult. So it's something which we are really, really well equipped to do. So work with us, knowing that tiredness is a big issue. Don't overstress them in that first week or the first term. Don't overstress them. All right. So communicate wisely. We are here for you, and we are very much wanting to deal with problems as they come and arise. You'll have lots of communication with your child's kindergarten teachers, and you'll also have lots of communication with the stage assistant principal, as well as making sure that you have got lots and lots of discussions with parents and other parents. Just remember that every child is different, every school is different, and the way in which you may have an issue which you talk to a friend who's got us at another school, and it may seem that that's a great way that they're doing that, and we're not doing it. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way, but it is a really good opportunity perhaps to join the PNC, maybe use the PNC as an opportunity to perhaps put forward some different ideas, because definitely we can learn from each other. We work very closely with all the schools in this area in the Port Hacking network, so it's great to do. And so I think I'm going to pass this now onwards to Miss Bahaji, who's going to talk about resilience. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Lappett. Good morning, everybody. Hi, I'm Noelle. Just checking, Ms. Pryor, that it's on, the screen's on me. I can still see it on Dr. Lappett.
Okay, yep. So we can see you, and then raising resilient children. Is that what you can see, Jen?
Fantastic. I just didn't want poor Dr. Lappett to have like my voiceover on him and then his head.
No worries.
All right, beautiful. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Noelle Bahaji, and I'm very lucky to be one of the kindergarten teachers at Cornell South Public School. And today I'm going to talk to you about raising resilient children. Thanks, Ms. Pryor. So why resilience? Here's a picture of my little peanuts. So I've got two girls, and here's a picture of them on their first day of kindergarten. And thanks, Ms. Pryor. We'll just stand that for a second. So in 2016, my girls were, it was about this time of year in 2016, my girls were getting ready to go to big school for 2017. And I knew as a kindergarten teacher what to expect when they went to school, but I had obviously not experienced the lead up towards school as a mom before. And I really wanted to know what we could do as a family to support that transition. So I started to do some research, looking things up, and I found a lot. The keyword that just kept coming up over and over again was resilience, resilience, resilience. And so this presentation started because I wanted to share with you what I had learned. And also I found that in my teaching, a lot of the conversations I was having was with parents around resilience. And it was really helpful in that sort of 2017, 18, 19 years that I was starting to talk about it. So we've turned it into a presentation. Now that was 2016. And resilience was a topic, but it wasn't prevalent. It wasn't everywhere the way it is now. And we know that now in 2021, which is the slide we're looking at, it is everywhere. Every podcast, every parenting podcast, every blog, every Insta story is about resilience. And so I think the topic is important, but now instead of sort of looking for information, we're actually swimming through the information, trying to find what is actually going to be helpful for our children and their transition. So today, if you thought, oh, resilience, I know all about that. I see that everywhere. I fully understand that. But today we want to talk to you about resilience through the lens of a parent teacher and going to school and how we're going to use resilience to help that transition. Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Yeah, especially, I was just going to say, especially through the period that we've just been through, we've all sort of, I think a lot of us have been reading a lot of information on that, talking a lot about resilience, and a lot of us have been working from home and or being teachers at home. My current situation is I'm renovating my house, living in my mother-in-law's. My children are upstairs doing online learning, and I was doing the presentation this morning. So I was like, resilience, resilience. And I know that story is very typical for a lot of people. So what is resilience? We'll go through some basic definitions, then we'll talk a little bit about how it pertains to our children. So resilience refers to the ability of a person to successfully manage their life, to adapt to change and to stressful events in a healthy and constructive way. It's about the bounce back ability of life. So we say that in that we know that life isn't always going to be easy. We will face adversity, and it's how we bounce back from those adversities, whether big or small. In young children, resilience is important in the management of emotions and behaviors, which can impact their social relationships and their ability to learn. Some people are naturally resilient and others need to work at it. I know this well because I'm in the others need to work at it category. Research shows that resilience can be nurtured and developed, particularly when parents themselves are resilient. They can actively foster it in their kids. And that's something that I have to be very intentional about, and something that when I became a parent was really important to me, that I wanted my children to be a bit more resilient than I had been. Thank you. So resilience is composed of many parts. We've got things like learning from our mistakes, understanding and accepting our strengths and weaknesses. Resilience can be about self-control or the willingness to overcome difficulties rather than avoiding our problems. It can include optimistic thinking patterns, social skills, and ability to seek assistance from others. It can be about our ability to recognize our own emotions and the emotions in other people. Resilience is definitely about problem-solving skills. It can include goal setting with realistic expectations, and it has a lot to do with self-esteem. Mostly for kindergarten, it's about learning from our mistakes and where to go forward. So growth mindset. I've got my Yeti here with me today, of course. At Cronulla South Public School, we have a strong wellbeing program, strong wellbeing programs that are weaved throughout our curriculum. Through our Leader in Me program, we explicitly teach leadership habits and encourage our children to have a growth mindset. We've talked about this before, and we'll talk about it again. Today is not about growth mindset, but it is something that we use all the time. Mrs. Palmer-Vale, Mrs. McIntosh, and myself are daily talking to our children through our feedback, especially online learning through Seesaw, with our feedback about growth mindset. So growth mindset learning promotes sharing and listening. It's about critical thinking, and it's a social approach to learning that encourages learning to happen collectively. Children learn to work together, solve problems together, and learn from watching other children's different approaches. This is a bit of the magic of kindergarten, learning from others and how others work things out. Understanding the power of growth mindset can be a secret weapon in a parent's toolkit when raising a child. So as a parent, it's definitely something that I rely heavily on, and it's been very, very helpful for our family. Allowing children to struggle and encouraging their own discovery rather than jumping in and helping really helps children to become resilient and capable of solving problems. We need to trust our children to solve their problems. That can be really challenging as a parent. It's much easier to step right in, fix things. It's definitely a much smoother road, but if you're going on the smooth road, there's not a lot of growth. And so it can be really challenging for us as parents to allow our children to, become resilient through solving their own problems. And we'll talk more about that. Thank you. So shark music, I have to say, well, I'll explain what shark music is and then tell you how loudly mine was blaring this morning. So shark music isn't about Cronulla. It's dun, dun. And I think by making that sound, you know what it means. Everyone has different triggers for anxiety, for fear, for worry, or for anger. And we can call this our shark music. Now, this morning, my shark music was blaring because as we were meant to be on this morning, we were waiting. I was going to say at 9:55, as I was waiting for this to come in, I was very hopeful that I was going to actually be in, that my camera would work, that my microphone would work, that my children would be doing the right thing on getting onto their morning check-in. And I could feel it happening inside me. And I was thinking, you know how to do this. You've been practicing this speech. So I was working on all of my techniques to work with my shark music. It's important to know your shark music, your children's shark music, and talk to them about it. So for adults, often shark music can be public speaking, and that's definitely true for myself. When I feel really strongly about something like this, like talking about resilience, we can push through, we can find ways to, deal with adverse situations or situations that cause us anxiety or fear. For some of you, your shark music might be school. or it might be your child going to school, and that's okay. That's okay. For some people, it's meeting new people, and we know that when your child goes to school that you will be meeting new people, and we're there to support you with that as well. So we know that my music was loud this morning. You might be sitting there at home listening to all of this, trying to take it all in, and your shark music might be really loud for you right now too. But please know that we're all in this together and we're here to support you. Another thing I just want to say is it's really important to not project your anxiety and fears onto your children. And so if school was tricky for you, that's okay, that it's part of your story. But it's important to make sure that for your own children, you can change that story, that you can talk positively about school, and that you can change that for them. You can make it so that it's not their shark music. Right now in our home, my children are really worried about going back to school because they're going to be separated. You might have noticed in the picture that they're twins and they spend a lot of time together. And so when we go back to school, so we're talking a lot about that. And it's very helpful to talk to your children about what their worries are. Everybody has worries, everybody has fears, everybody has anxiety. That's really normal. And it's okay to feel that way. But it's important to talk to our children about it. I've just written down here, knowing your child's shark music can help you prepare for situations that might cause big feelings, big emotions, big upset behaviors. If you're not in tune with your child's shark music yet, you might be in tune with the big behaviors. So you might notice that maybe every time you go to a certain location, there's a meltdown. Every time you come home from a certain place, there's a meltdown. And if you look at that through a different lens, if you look at that through, oh, maybe that's actually what my child is feeling. At 4 and 5 years old, they might not be able to articulate, this place scares me, or I have a big fear, or use words like anxiety, but they might be able to scream and cry and have a big tantrum. And if you see that behavior in a repeated situation, you can often find that it is maybe their shark music. Shark music is an easy term for us to help our children to define it. So in our home, it's something that we use at school. It's called Think Alouds. So I talk out loud. Right now, I'm feeling a little bit worried, and this is why I'm worried because, but I'm still going to do this, and in the end, it will be okay because, and we talk through it. So I have a funny, this morning, my children, I was saying to the teachers this morning, I was obviously nervous about today, and my children knew that. And when I came down this morning, I had all like my security things all laid out on the table for me. And they've put all these little love things out on here and to help me with today. And I thought, oh, bless them. They know Mama's shark music and they know things that I need. So yeah, so we try not to avoid our shark music. Sorry, Miss Pryor, just one more thing there. We try not to go. Go back. I'll tell you when I need to go. I'll try and go quickly. Sorry. We try not to avoid our shark music. Obviously, if your child has like a rational fear and there is a situation that isn't okay, please don't force them to do anything that they don't want to do. But if they have shark music and you know that they would benefit from doing the activity, we can do it. Sarah Boyd, who I have the quote from here, is a wonderful author and an expert in resilience. I'll just read what she says. Anxiety can be heightened when we have high levels of uncertainty. Psychologically, our brain isn't wired for uncertainty. This is because it is unable to predict what is about to happen next, which requires a lot more mental energy to sustain. Therefore, psychologically, we're driven to avoid uncertain situations. So if your child is feeling anxious about something that they haven't experienced before, you can help them get through that by experiencing the situation. So if that's school, it's about visiting the school. So we have some ways that we can deal with our shark music, and there's a beautiful video that we'd like to show you next. All right, so this video that we're going to watch now is called Just Breathe. It's by Julie Bayer-Salzman and Josh Salzman. And the video references anger, but it can also be replaced with the word anxiety. So when you hear, or fear. So when you hear the children talking about that, just think about possibly anxiety or fear. Thank you, Ms. Pryor.
I get really mad when my brother hits me a lot.
I don't like it when you say you don't want to play with me.
When I'm mad, my brain can get a headache and it can start hurting.
Your blood keeps pumping because you're like really mad. and you start to get sweaty because you're getting really, really mad. And then when you start getting really mad, you turn red. When your body can't really control yourself, mad just takes over your body. I just get out of control. It's kind of like if you had a jar, and then the jar would be your brain, and then you put glitter in the jar, and that would be how you would feel like. If you shook up the jar and the glitter went everywhere, that would be how your mind looks. And it's like spinning around, and then you don't have any time to think. And you sometimes punch stuff and people when you don't really mean it. When I get angry, I feel it in my heart. I really don't like when I get angry. The amygdala really reacts, but the prefrontal cortex tries to keep it down. When I feel like I want to, get really angry and yell, I just sometimes, take deep breaths. First you find a place where you can be alone, then you find some way to relax and calm down. When I need to calm down, I take deep breaths. I breathe in through my nose. Sometimes I close my eyes or just take deep breaths. It's coming down, it's not moving. It's slowing down and then it stops. And the heart pumps slow and then it goes into your brain. It's like all the sparkles are at the bottom of your brain. My brain slows down, and then I feel more calm, and then I'm ready to speak to that person.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. I love that video. I hope everyone's feeling a little bit more calm after that. I know I am. My shark music has definitely gone down. So I think we know that it's really important to remember what it feels like to have all that glitter swirling around. And we know that that's what our children are feeling when they're really heightened, when they're in a fear state, and when they're in an anxiety state, or when you can see that they're having a tantrum. If you can picture that that's actually their glitter stirring around, it's very helpful to think to yourself. It gives you that visual of that wait time. And we talk to our children, and if we're using that think aloud technique, you can say to them in a time when they are actually really calm, when you are feeling that way, we know that your head feels like there's glitter swirling around and you're really upset. I will talk to you when I can see that your glitter has settled. As adults, we get really good at feeling that inside but not expressing it. So sometimes we have those really big feelings, but we have learned, we're socialized, and we've learned to calm ourselves and behave accordingly. But a good example of sometimes when adults don't do so well, that is road rage. And if you can feel what that feeling of road rage feels like, right? Even if you are the most pleasant, calm person, sometimes, someone cut you off and boom, you have that big feeling. And if you can remember that that's that big feeling, that whole body feeling that our kids get when they have that anxiety, when they have that fear, if you can think, oh, it's that feeling, and that wild burst of anxiety or wild burst of anger, if you can picture it like glitter and settle it. So we actually have some strategies that we teach our children when we're helping them to settle their glitter. Let's look at those. All right, so settling our glitter. So breathing is very helpful. And you can see from that beautiful clip that we just saw, the importance of breath. So we have some techniques that we use at school with our children to help them, teach them breathing techniques. One of them is smell the flowers and blow the bubbles. That's really good for our children who are really visual. So you tell them, hold a bunch of flowers, picture what the flowers look like, and hold like a bubble wand, and you smell for 3, and you blow for 3. And it's just that action. It's really good for our visual kids and also our kids who are a bit more physical to do that. Square breath is breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out as you're going around a square. You can actually trace that on your child's hand. Some children like it traced on their backs, or you can tell them to visualize that. Hand breathing, this one's good. Another one for children who like touch. In and out, in and out, in and out. This one is good because it actually gives our children something to do while they're breathing. The next one is mind pictures. We're really lucky. Our children who go to Cronulla South almost all have beautiful experiences at the beach. So when your child is in a happy play state of calm, you can help them remember some mind pictures. So a couple that we use in our family, we're at the beach, we're picturing the waves going out, we're picturing the waves going in. Another one is the feeling of sand when you're walking, the feeling of sand in your toes, or the feeling of sand through your fingers. If you talk to your child when they're in a state of calm and say, this is such a beautiful moment, we could use this when we're feeling really worried or we're feeling really angry, when our glitter is all swirling around. We could use this picture to help us calm us down. Let's have a look around, see what we can see, hear, smell, touch, and we talk to them about that. Then when they're really heightened, we can sit near them. As teachers at school, we obviously don't hug the children, but we can sit near them when you're at home. Obviously, you can hug your bubbas. We sit near them and we say to them, oh, once you see that glitter settling a bit, never when children are heightened, but once the glitter is settling a bit, you can say, let's think about one of our calm pictures. You tell me, what do you see? What do you hear? Things like that. You can do that in the present moment or in a calm picture. Turtle technique is great for our children who like touch. They can hug themselves. So that you hug yourself like this and you put your head down low. The hand on head is really good. 2 hands on your head and push down. You can tell them that that's helping to settle the glitter. That's actually that physical touch is really good. Hand squeezing is really good. And for our children, some of our children who are not tactile, don't like touch and have a hard time with vision, prefer to do it orally, and they might talk to a teacher or a friend. If you're at home and your child's having a really hard time, I recommend having them talk to a stuffy. It is a very safe, neutral place to talk to. Having a hard time, get a stuffy, tell them all your problems, and then when you're ready, you can share that with me or not, or you can get the stuffy to share the problems. So the children is the voice, the stuffy is the one actually sharing the problem, and it helps your child be able to settle their glitter. It is, thank you, Ms. Spire. When you know your child's shark music, I just want to mention really quickly, if you know the triggers that your children have, remember that we're a team. If you feel comfortable, you can tell the classroom teacher, or you could tell Ms. Pryor things that are triggers for your children, or some things that just situations that you know cause your children to have a little bit of upset. The more information you have, the better prepared we can be for your child. And then that also opens up communication. We can let you know how your children are doing in those situations at school. Just quickly, I mentioned that my children had put all sorts of beautiful little support things on my desk today. We recommend for some of your children to do that as well. A marble's a really easy one. It's something really simple. You can say, I'm putting my love and power in this. You've got this, put it in their pocket, and then they can feel it. It's not something distracting. They usually don't take it out in class. Not that fun to play with. But it's something that they can physically feel in their pocket. A little toy or a teddy, something in their backpack, or maybe a picture of something that makes them feel good. That could be you, or it could be a family pet. Laminate a little picture of a family pet, put it in their backpack, and then they can go and visit that. All right, onto this slide. I love this picture. Look at Summer laughing. Isn't it beautiful?
I miss them.
It's just gorgeous. It makes me so happy. I cannot wait to get back to school next week. So we know that children cannot learn when they are feeling stressed or upset. We want our students to have good self-esteem and self-awareness, and we want our students to problem solve and be able to ask for help. We want our students to be able to manage their emotions so they're able to be present and connect with what we're teaching them. Nobody learns when their glitter is high. So if we can work on settling our glitter and learning those techniques and being a bit independent with that, we know that the children will better access the curriculum and will be able to better access social relationships as well. Thank you, Ms. Pryor. All right, so resilience at big school. Now, Dr. Lowett was talking about how it can be a time of anxiety, and that's true for some of our children. Some of our children transitioning to school can be a really overwhelming and stressful experience. For other children, the transition might be easy, but there may be social situations or things that happen at school that cause fear, worry, or anger. In order to reduce the feelings of anxiety, we must create as much certainty as possible. So when beginning a new school year, the more certainty you can build into this transition for your child, the less anxiety they will experience. The goal is to make the new situation a new normal as quickly as possible. That's Sarah Boyd again. So like Dr. Lowett was saying, visit the school, come and see us at the school gates. We will be back there as of Monday. So come at recess and lunch. We will wave at you. We will come and talk to you at the gate. We will give you a nice big socially distanced safe wave. And we are really happy to have you walk around. I know a lot of the children call us the seahorse school. So walk your children around, see how many seahorses you can find on the buildings, on the gates, and have try and make those routines their new normal. We also have at the bottom here a countdown calendar. That's something that you will be receiving. Great activities that you can do in January. It's all about trying on your uniform, some literacy, some numeracy activities you can do, some great sentence starters or conversation starters about talking about big school. So we will have a great scaffold for you to do, make this a new normal for you. Thanks, Ms. Pryor. So what can you do at home? You have 3 months. So between now and when your children come to school, you have 3 months to really work on this resilience. So let's chat about what we can actually do and how we can be proactive with that. So here are some strategies for helping 4 to 6 year olds on their path to being resilient. Children at this age are pushing boundaries. I don't have to tell you that. You are living that right now. So you are at home right now with children that are 4 or 5 or 6, and they are pushing boundaries. And probably over the last 3 months, that's been really big for you. So it's important to remember that we are their seatbelt. So talk to your children about your expectations. Know what your expectations are as a family and stay consistent and clear with your expectations. Try to show unconditional love. This can be really tricky when we're also having a really hard transition time as adults. But if we can try and be a loving place, we know that it's more helpful for our children. Be that safe and loving place and show consistent loving reactions. Children at this age need an adult to co-regulate their big emotions and help them organize their big feelings. Try not to get on the roller coaster with them. Thank you, Ms. Pryor. All right, remembering that egocentric behavior is normal. It is developmentally normal behavior for a child, 4 to 6, to be super egocentric. It's all about them. So there are some things that you can do to be helpful for their transition to school. One of them is modeling sharing. So, and the other one is modeling reactions for losing. So how to lose without losing it. It is not helpful to have a classroom of 20 children who have never lost a board game. If everybody always wins snakes and ladders and we all get together, it can be very confusing and confronting and very anger-inducing if you lose for the first time at school. So this could be tricky if you have a household where we allow our children to not lose, to win every time. It might be the time to start changing that. You can also do this by being really funny. So, you can show what losing it when you lose looks like, have a really big over-the-top reaction to losing, and then say, what do you think the teachers at school would think about that? And then your children will be like, oh, no, that is no. And then you're like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Like, if I could lose in a better way. So maybe model before you have them lose, especially if they're losing for the first time. You can value and encourage being helpful, kind, and fair, and also sharing. So if your child is an only child, you can have them practice sharing at home with you. If you have multiple children at home, your children are probably used to sharing already. So this is probably not something new to you. This technique is called give choice. Allow children to make choices to feel in command of their world. Remember that you're giving choices that will end up with the result that you wanted. Would you like to put on your shorts first or your shirt? Would you like to put on the blue socks or the red? Oh, one of each. Great. Put your socks on. So it is all about giving your children choice, but ending up in the place that you wanted to be. That's what will happen when they get to school. They will be given choice, but it is probably less choices than they've had at home. It does make them feel in command of their world, though, if they could be in charge of themselves. Encourage problem solving and learning from mistakes, and teach instead of punish. So an example is the spilt milk. You're pouring cereal for the first time, the milk goes everywhere. Very easy to come in very heightened, angry. Oh, there's milk everywhere. This is a disaster. What are you doing? You're reinforcing to your children that they can't do that. They can't be trusted. You could be like, oh no, there is milk everywhere. What are we going to do? So before you grab the paper towel or the cloth, ask your child, what are we going to do? What could you do? And sort of give them the opportunity to wipe things up. It's going to be an interesting 3 months. You can do this. Thanks, Inspire. So from a resilience perspective, parents need to coach kids through some of their more challenging moments and review what they may have learned for next time. Our children need us to take the time to check in with them and listen to them and support them. So it's all about establishing those connections and routines. We know that you have very busy lives. As working parents, we understand this. You're probably ferrying your children when you get to school, and hopefully we're all back to our new norm. Your children will be doing lots of activities, and you might notice that they're at school, then they're going to activities, then they're coming home, they're eating, and you're going to bed, and you realize you haven't had an opportunity to check in with them. So if you make a check-in routine or a time of day that you always check in with them. If you're super busy, that could be in the car. I find that's a really good one for us. When we're able to have a family dinner, we do check-ins at family dinners. And we need to be able to make sure that we're checking with our children regularly to see how they're doing. When things go wrong, ask your child how they handled it, and try and be curious and not judgmental. So I actually have a true life example for this one. So a child came home from school, and they were upset, and they said to their parents that their toy, they didn't have their toy. Another child at the school had taken their toy. So there's two paths this parent could have taken. Path number one, heightened. I can't believe they took your toy. This is ridiculous. I'm so upset. I'm so angry. I knew that child would do that to you, and talking negatively about the other child, straight into the WhatsApp group, straight into talking to their parents about it, straight into firing off an angry email to the school. Path number two, if we had been curious and not judgmental, I wonder what happened first. The child comes home from school, they're upset, their toy is not with them, it's gone home with another child. Oh, what happened first? That's interesting. Oh, we were trading toys. And I said that they could take my toy for a sleepover, which is actually what happened. So their child actually had traded toys with another child, and the child had actually said that the toy could go home for a sleepover. And when the parent looked in the bag, they actually had the other child's toy in their bag. So if the parent had gone down path number two, it could have saved them a lot of stress for their own child, and also having to unravel all of the things that happened in the WhatsApp group and in the email. So it can be really tricky as a parent to do this. We are, of course, our advocates for our own children and our defenders for our own children. But if you go down this path of questioning for your children that's curious and not judgmental, your children will come to you with a lot of stories. They will probably share a lot more with you, and you will probably be able to find the truth a bit quicker. We are always here to support anything. If things actually go wrong at school, please notify the school, please let us know. And we're here to follow that up, of course. But remember that when we are at this age and we are egocentric and everybody else is, that the story might be a little bit different from the way that we thought it went. So asking questions like, I wonder what happened first. I wonder what you did. Ask your child how things made them feel, and also ask your child what is their next step. So trust your child to make their solutions to their problems and support them if needed. Try and avoid solving all their problems. And if we look at mistakes as learning opportunities and a chance to use a growth mindset, we can reframe events and learning experiences. I can say as a teacher who's talked to a lot of parents and also as a mom, try not to ride the social wave of your children. Your children will be best friends and not best friends, and invited to the party and not coming to the party over and over again. And if you get on that wave with them, you're going to be exhausted. Remember that they can be really close with someone one day and not with them the next, and then really close with them again. And that can be tricky for you. I recommend making your friendships outside of your children's friendships, so that no matter what happens with your children, you can stay safe there. Go ahead, Ms. Barry. Thank you. All right, so how do we minimize the negative and amplify the positive? So attention is love, and any attention feels good. If your child is receiving attention for telling you about a negative event, they will look for them. A really good example of this is often what happens with our children is we're like talking about their day, and they're telling us something really funny that happened or something positive, and we're busy, we're making dinner, we're driving them somewhere, we're doing homework with other children, we're like, oh, that's good, oh, that's good. Or maybe you're working on a computer, looking at your phone. As soon as your child says, somebody hurt me, somebody left me out, somebody didn't make me feel good, parents will put the phone down, put the computer away, stop what they're doing, and give their child eye contact, often straight down eye contact, a hug and love. And what happens there is your child goes, oh, when I say something negative, my family pays attention to me. When I act hurt, I get a loving attention, and that can set up a really negative pattern and a really negative headspace. So how can we change that? We just have to change the way that we question. Now, if your child is upset, please connect in with them. Of course, always connecting with them, and let us know how we can support you, but just try and see where you're putting your energy. It can really help you. So change the way you question. Instead of what happened at school today? Or did that person hurt you? Or was there anyone on the playground leaving you out? You can switch it to maybe something like, who was kind to you today? Or who are you kind to? Or tell me something funny that happened. We're funny hunters in our house. Thank you. We're almost done, everybody. Thank you for listening. I know it's really tricky on Zoom. It's quite challenging for me not to have the interaction of the families and not to see your faces and be sharing stories back and forth. So thank you for listening for so long. We're almost done. So how can you promote a lasting sense of resilience in your children? Well, you can do that by having a positive attitude yourself. You can model a can-do attitude for your child. You can look for teachable moments. Many kids' learning opportunities are disguised as problems. So that's also flipping that script in your head. If you see a problem and you think this is a learning opportunity instead of a problem, that can be helpful for you. Make the most of opportunities so that kids can grow and learn from some of the challenges they face. Your child might bring home new behaviors from school, and it is really helpful to have your family boundaries really clear. So in our home, we, in this family, we, and know your own moral compass is very helpful. Make kids an active participants in the family. So active participation in the family develops some self-help, problem solving, and independent skills. We highly recommend that you get your children getting themselves dressed for school. That helps with us at the school level, if they can put on their jumpers, if they can do up their Velcro shoes, if they're able to toilet themselves, making sure that they can practice putting on the school shorts and pants, sports and regular uniform on and off. Also get them ready for what's happening the next day. So tomorrow is your library day. Go and get your library bag. Put that out the morning before. Panicked mornings lead to panicked transitions to school, lead to tough days. So if you can be prepped the day before, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Pryor. In 2014, Andrew Fuller, one of Australia's well-known child and adolescent psychologists, ran a study about resilience with approximately 16,000 Aussie youth. The children who are most resilient almost universally agreed with two statements that children with the lowest resilience disagreed with, and they were, 1, I have a parent who cares about me, and 2, I have a parent who listens to me. So if using the techniques that we've talked about today, if you can really set aside some time, schedule time to check in with your child, to let them know that you're there listening, and listen when they speak. Thank you. Promoting resilience in children is not a single event, but a continuous process that requires adults to be supportive and empathetic. And we look forward to being part of this process with you and your child. So we did say that we have 3 months between now and school starting, but as soon as school starts, you've got many, many years. And we're really excited to be part of that process with you. Resilience is something that we will work on all year in kindergarten with your child. And it's something that we are happy to talk to you about anytime, either prior to school starting or while you're in school, anytime anything comes up. Thank you, Ms. Pryor. On to our last slide. I love this. When little people are overwhelmed by big emotions, it's our job to share our calm, not join their chaos. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for listening. I know that was really long.
No, it was incredible, Noelle. And I think you could see us nodding along, because I think this year, every year, building resilience for kindergarten students, but I think this year in particular, a lot of I'm seeing it again through a different light, I think, and just the big conversations we're having at the moment in terms of getting our kids ready for this return to school. Resilience is just as important as ever. So thank you.
Yeah, be kind to yourself and be kind to your kids.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you.
So a little bit of cute relief. I'll just pass to Jen.
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Bahaji. You may have felt nervous about speaking this morning, but we wouldn't have known if you didn't tell us you speak so beautifully. I just want to mention how much I love this photo. These are some of the little girls in my current kindergarten class. This was actually taken on the morning of our athletics carnival, and one of the little girls came to school with some little bows for all of her friends in their house colours made out of patty cases and clips, and handed them out to all her friends. It was very, very sweet. And I think it's indicative of the beautiful friendships that you can look forward to your children making when they start school at Cronulla South next year. We put together a little video of some of our kindergarten students sharing some of the things that they love about school to help you get excited.
I love kindergarten because it's a lot of fun and I learn a lot of things. I like going to school because we learn lots of new things and my teachers are very nice. I like when I do math with my teacher and I like to play with my buddy and play with my friends. My favourite thing about school is I've got a beautiful teacher, I have great new friends, and now I can even read. I like making new friends and learning new things. I like having a buddy because when I first started school, she would wait at the gate for me, and I like playing games with her. I like my buddy because I play running my sister and I beat him. Playing football with Dee and also basketball. To be playing with her. My favourite thing about having a buddy is you can ask questions to them and they can answer them for you, and they're really nice and they're great people to play with. My favourite thing to do at school is get lunch orders and being a handy helper. Playing with my friends. Math. We learn to do like math, like a sum, like 99 plus 1 equals 100, 100 plus 100 equals 200. Wow. My favourite thing to do at school is art. Getting sushi at the canteen. When I get to do math with my teacher. When I play with my girls and boys. At school I like playing with my friends, doing art and maths and reading, and I love everything.
Oh goodness, they're so cute. I just can't wait to see them again as they come through the gates. Would you agree?
Yes, we miss them so much.
Yeah, they were very excited to share all of the things that they can't wait to do again once we get back. So here's now please feel free to take notes and things, but do remember this is all being recorded, but also we'll send everything that you need in emails. We also have an orientation booklet that is nearly ready to go out as well. So take it in, but you're about to be hit with a bit of information. So just to kind of give you a bit of a heads up. So some of the things that we have coming up, these are our 2 transition afternoons that we have emailed you these dates. Just we wanted to give you as much warning as possible. Now, we still are yet to know exactly what we are allowed to do by this time. The Department of Education is waiting to see how the transition goes in terms of the return to school, and we will be just guided by health orders. But what we would like, and after discussing with a lot of families, we know that you're really keen to get on site and to have that school tour, which is definitely an important part of our transition program that we regularly do. So we are putting just this tentative date at this point, Tuesday, the 23rd of November. We're looking at hopefully, so just keep your eye on emails, hopefully having some staggered tours and a bit of an orientation morning. So that is a new date that we just wanted to give you the heads up about. Did you want to mention anything on that, Neil? It just kind of at this point in time, we're just waiting to see what we are and aren't allowed to do later in the term.
Yeah, okay. I might just mention, because I've been sort of taking a little bit of a look at the chat and also some of the questions that have been coming in. So there are some questions which are around our what you're probably reading in the press, and perhaps parents are talking about in terms of things like cohorting and what the conditions are like when we come back to school at the beginning of next week. So we do have some restrictions, which are, obviously the state is taking a very cautious approach in terms of stepping back away from these restrictions. And that first part of it we saw with the beginning of this week, and they will, as the vaccination rate in New South Wales continues to rise, those restrictions will again be eased. And the same thing is happening with schools, but when we do come back, we are going to be working in cohorts. And so those parents who are asking about that return, so walking past at recess and lunchtime, so we do have slight variations to those. It's not so much for the K-2 side. The recess break is the same, and the lunch break is a little bit shorter. And so just in terms of it, might caution you maybe to leave that until maybe just mid-November, because we're not going to be really encouraging students. And if they see you at the gate, if our students see you around the edge of there, they'll probably, if they know you particularly, they'll want to run up to you and everything like that. So we just perhaps that might be good to just leave it until mid. We're hoping that we will see a big decline away from that, which is why we've put that orientation morning there is the 23rd of November. We are allowed to do orientations from the time when we move from what we call level 3 plus conditions. So as soon as that restriction is lifted, we no longer have to cohort in the same way, and so we'll be able to sort of unify our 2 schools that will be operating at that point, and we'll also be able to look at different conditions for the orientations. And as the restrictions drop, the ability for us to have the parents on site during that time increases. So that's why we've left it as late as we possibly can. The good news is that once we do finish that cohorting, we will be able to involve those buddies in that. So we'll be able to have what we did last year, and what we're hoping to do this year is to have our year 5, and who will be your children's buddies in year 6, to be heavily involved in that in terms of giving them tours, making them feel welcome to the school, and of course, there'll be a familiar face for them when they come back next year. So that will be something which we're really, really hoping. So keep your fingers crossed. Touch wood, whatever you do to keep yourself lucky. It's we're looking pretty good as a state, I think. Staying positive, and I'm very confident that we'll be able to work with this plan going forward. Of course, we'll let you know as soon as we think it may be in jeopardy, so you have plenty of time to adjust your schedules. We obviously do have a little bit of time. We have an 11-week term this term, so a little bit longer. We're going all the way through to the 16th of December, so we do have a little bit of extra time which we can perhaps use, and we could compress those weeks. So our most important thing, of course, is making sure this is a good authentic transition, as opposed to being one which is so different that perhaps your children don't get the same benefit out of it. And I can tell you now that that's definitely the views of the higher levels within the department as well.
Thanks, Neil. So yeah, we're staying very flexible. I remember last year around this time, I sent an email out one day saying all of our dates are on hold. We can't have a kindergarten orientation. Oh, yep. And then the next date was stop the press. These are our new dates. So we're staying flexible. We have gone through a little bit different this year, but yeah, orientation still went ahead last year, and we had such a smooth transition. So we've also got our enrollment interviews. Those have been popping up for Neil and I. So if you haven't already, just schedule in an enrollment interview, and there's also associated with that is a student profile. So that's just to give us a bit more information leading in. We know that those are only short time slots, so we just want as much information as we can to give that kind of best start, which I'll talk about in a second. So some of the things that we do to support you, you'll be receiving, we put together an orientation pack. That's the booklet that I was discussing before. Those transition afternoons, we get the students in the kindergarten classrooms. Like Neil mentioned, they'll meet their buddies, which is a huge part of their transition. And the department also puts together some advice for parents. So we'll be packaging that all up. You don't need to worry. We'll be getting that all organized for you. I won't go too far into this. I think Neil covered most of it, but just staying positive. Some things that people like to do often is set up a play date if you do know somebody that might be from your preschool that's starting. Also, depending if libraries are open, but I think they are now, just starting a few things around reading some books, checking out the local library, and those things around looking at packed lunches as well. Now, this is a new initiative for this year. So we've been working with our students during home learning. For K-2 students, they've had an online learning journal. So we thought, and I think a few other schools are doing this year, we're going to set up a Kindergarten 22 seesaw class. I nearly said seahorse. We are known as the Seahorse School. So once you receive this, again, will be in an email to you. You'll be able to log in, and we'll be sending some stories. We've got lots up our sleeve now since home learning. There's beautiful Mrs. Bahaji. That's if you give a pig a pancake, that's that one, isn't it?
It is. It's my favorite.
There we go. And we've also, our Year 5 buddies, as part of their home learning, they've been putting together some profiles. They've got the idea that they want to do some reading recordings, so some book recordings as well once they get back to the school. So we really are finding that this has been a bit of a silver lining that's come out of this home learning period. We're finding even more ways that we can connect and support you with transition. So that's something that's new this year, but we're excited to connect with you that way. I know that I just put this in because we do have a lot of families often asking about uniforms. So Neil mentioned, don't worry too much if you don't have your uniform yet. Often the students will grow, but this will be an order form will be sent through to you as part of our orientation program. And we also have our secondhand uniform shop as well. Did you want to add anything on that, Bryony?
If they're wanting secondhand uniforms at the moment, we still have a big pile that the uniform coordinator has to sort through. So if you leave it for a good 3 weeks or so, once we can get the uniform shop opened, we might have some extra supplies, especially small sizes. We're running low on small sizes. And then we can hopefully get you on site so you can maybe try some. If we can't try them on, we're more than happy to send them home so you can see if they fit. Then you can pay through them online using the QuickR app, so there's no cash involved at the school, and then you can return what you don't need. So we have got a plan B in place if we can't get you on site, so that will be communicated once everything happens.
Fantastic. Now, here are some new dates. So again, this will be in an email to you. It'll also be in the orientation booklet, but just some dates for your diary is that we hold our Best Start Kindergarten interviews, and I'll talk to what those involve in a second, but we'll be holding those on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of February, which is exciting. That means that we have our first day of school. Our date for next year will be Friday, the 4th of February. So we'll have 3 days of Best Start. So you'll come in just for an interview. And then on that Friday, it'll be a staggered start. We like to, it's quite a nice start. We like to have groups of students come in. It gives you that chance to have that moment. I'd call it that moment. Would you call it that moment? It's a really nice way to start. We do a bit of a goodbye, a bit of a nice photo, and then they're into the classroom. So we'll have an opportunity for you to sign up for your Best Start interview, and then we'll also communicate with you your staggered time. And then from the following week, the students will be there 5 days a week, which, like Neil said, for some, it might be that they come that Friday, oh, done, I've done school, but no, we'll need to see them on the Monday, and hopefully they'll be excited for that. We also have an earlier pickup time as well for that Friday, just to transition them into the start of school. Did Neil want to mention anything, or have I missed anything?
Thank you, Sally. Just one thing I do want to just mention, because I know that this is something which often parents are a little bit concerned about. Best Start. Yes. It's you will probably be thinking about Best Start, and you'll probably be thinking, well, when you get told, well, it's a little bit of there's a little bit of a test, and there's people in the community, businesses, particularly early learning centres, that talk about it as being this big assessment at the beginning of school. It isn't. It is a type of assessment, but for us, it's very much what we call a formative assessment. So it tells us a little bit of information that we need to know right at the beginning, so that we can cater for your children in the best possible way. The worst thing that you can do is to try and tune your children to that. And there are businesses that do that, who will say, we will teach your children how to do really well in the Best Start. And the problem with that, of course, is that when they do well in the Best Start, and then they perhaps don't have all of the structure to support them around the actual processes that led to them doing well, they then don't do as well in the classroom. So it's really best to just let the testing happen at the beginning. It's a very, very positive, it's more of a conversation with a few little games, and what we get out of that is some great information that allows us to work with your children in the best possible way at the beginning. It's a really well worded Best Start. Ms. Bahaji, anything you want to add to that in terms of how you see Best Start?
Sure. Ms. Pryor, would you like to speak to your slide, and I'll see if I have anything to add to that?
Oh, I don't mind. We're a team here.
Sure, I'm happy to read it, or why don't you read it and I'll speak to it if we.
Yeah. So look, echoing everything that Neil said. So it's just about that Best Start. And by structuring our interviews in those first 3 days, we really do see it as an opportunity to get to know your child one-on-one. It's such a nice opportunity for the classroom teachers. We start to look at where they're at, but also it's not a test. So it's just one day. Some of the questions you can see on the screen. So start counting and I'll tell you when to stop. Tell me what happened in a story. And also, which I think Noel will probably talk to, if we're finding a question isn't maybe suited, we're not getting maybe an answer, we might go over and start having a look at some toys in the classroom and, oh, can you just count those? So the teachers are well rehearsed in this, and there's definitely no pass or fail. And like Neil mentioned, you don't need to prepare for this.
Yeah, I sort of look at it from a teaching perspective as a bit of a gift. So I have taught kindergarten without Best Start and taught kindergarten with Best Start. To spend that time, half an hour, 40 minutes one-on-one with the child, to actually get to see where they're at, get to learn a little bit about them. They get familiar with you, familiar with the classroom. We make sure it's a really fun and gentle introduction into school. It's really a gift as a teacher to be able to have that much one-on-one time with the child before they come into your care with all of the other children. We definitely don't look at it as a test, but we do look at it as a starting point. So learning is on a continuum, and wherever your child is at is where they start. And so we don't want to be, teaching your child maybe single sounds if they already know them, or teaching your child to count to 5 if they already know that. We want them to come to school and be stimulated and be excited about what they're learning. And Best Start allows us to find their starting point and start working our way on that continuum forward. So it's a really lovely experience for us. As a parent, it's funny, I felt nervous when my children went, but I did not do any prep for them, because I knew, other than what we just did in our family as far as like reading and counting and having fun prior to school, because I know, and Neil just spoke to this a little bit, that sometimes children who maybe access a learning center or get trained up a bit in Best Start can come across as really understanding concepts. And once they get to school, they might be grouped with other children that look like that actually do understand those concepts. And the worst thing we can do for our children is to put them in a situation where they feel a bit overwhelmed, or they have no movement. So if you really allow us to, spend some time with your child and get to know where they're actually at, we can start the teaching and learning journey in a really authentic and positive way.
And that's often, oh, you go.
So Sally, do you mind if I just share a funny story in terms of Best Start?
Yep.
So of course, my son also back in 2016 went through the Best Start, and at the time I was a teaching principal at a little school called St. Peter's Public School, which is near Newtown, and that was because it was a small school. I was actually one of the people who did the Best Start assessment. So we had me and the kindergarten teacher who were doing them together. And so I over the Christmas period had the testing kit, and little did I know that my son had actually found the testing kit and he took the book out and read the book. So of course, when he went to his own Best Start assessment, and sat down with his classroom teacher, and his classroom teacher told me this, what happened. He was handed the book, and we always often hand it the wrong way around. And in fact, so he just looked at it and he said, "Oh, I've already read that book." So being a fantastic kindergarten teacher, she actually just got another book and gave it to him. Yeah, that was one of those things. So I definitely not a good idea to if you are a teacher, and you're in Best Start, don't leave your kit anywhere close by, so the children can find it. Yeah, so just thought I'd share that.
I just thought too, I'd mention, Noelle mentioned that continuum of learning. So we often will get in the enrollment interviews, my child can't write their name yet, they can't read yet, and worries around where they are in terms of their development. Wherever they are at is where we will start off. So, and that's part of Best Start, is just finding a little bit more information. So please don't feel that you need to go and quickly get some things happening. There'll be lots of tips of things that you can be doing around maybe some literacy and numeracy at home, and those things that we do suggest, but it's definitely not, you need to be reading a certain amount by this stage. And I can see the kindergarten teachers nodding along with me as well. That's just important to note. Now we are at the point where we'd like to ask any questions, and thank you so much, Neil, for answering. There is a question and answer section of this Zoom webinar, so if you'd like to, I might stop sharing my screen for a minute. And we have some questions
in the chat. There's some questions in the chat, Miss Pryor.
Awesome. Okay. So the first question I can see is, what does the daily schedule look like for kindergarten? I might throw to one of our kindergarten teachers. I guess our daily schedule looks similar but different at the moment, but a typical kindergarten morning, Noelle, I might throw to you.
Sure, I'd love to speak to that. So every morning starts with a settling in period. So we start our school day by putting our bags away, going to the washroom and coming into the class, doing our attendance. We usually start with our morning routine, and that includes both literacy and numeracy. So that's around calendar activities, a couple of songs around, weather, days of the week, things like that. Our morning literacy session is a really important part of kindergarten, and that comes straight after our morning routine. So we make sure that we are getting a solid literacy session in Every day at 10 o'clock, we stop for a story and we have something called Crunch and Sip. So we're watering our brains and feeding our bodies something nutritious. And then following Crunch and Sip, we almost always continue on with literacy activities, which are more targeted to each child's individual level. So we do rotation groups, we do guided reading, we do fluid and flexible grouping, and then we have recess. After recess, that might look a little bit different for every class, but usually we try and get our maths lessons in there, so our numeracy lessons, in for half of that session. The other half of the session could be any of our other KLAs, and those are called our key learning areas. So that might be geography or science or history or creative and practical arts. We usually do those as the second half of the morning session. We have lunch at 12:50, and then in the afternoon we do another KLA. When we are starting kindergarten, a lot of our program is around building social relationships, around friendships, and so we're really weaving that well-being portion throughout our days. Mrs. Palmerville, did you want to say anything to that?
I think you've covered that beautifully, Mrs. Bahaji. Yeah, definitely building relationships in that first start to kindergarten is so important, making sure that all of the students feel comfortable in their environment.
Yeah. And we talked in our previous meeting about having sort of a play-based classroom and a really hands-on classroom. And Mrs. Palmerville is really fantastic at this. She does come from an early prior to school setting, and her background is in that. And we were talking about this, weren't we, Jen? About how we teach the concepts that we need to teach, but we teach them in a way that the children feel like they're playing.
Yeah. So we explicitly teach, and then we provide opportunities for the students to concrete that new knowledge and those new ideas through play and other carefully thought out experiences. Yeah.
That's right. And then we watch those. So what feels like play is actually being closely observed by teachers, and we see where children might need a little bit more consolidation with an idea, and we get to pull our children out and work with them in small groups to sort of make sure that we all understand concepts before we move on. So really heavy English, sorry, I should say literacy and numeracy based, and then relationships.
Thank you. So look, we also in our previous session spoke about our RFF program. So embedded, while Noelle said it might look different as in each classroom, is because we've also got our students will head to library or to music. We have lots of opportunities like that we fit in around our week as well. So
sport as well. We've got lots of really great sport activities at the school, and buddies is a big part of kindergarten. So we see our buddies.
Which leads into the next question. So we're looking at what's the plan to continue the buddy program in a distant way. So Neil kind of touched on this. So we do have the flexibility to use our buddies with the lifting towards our level 3 restrictions. So that buddy program is important, and it will continue because we'll be allowed to mix cohorts. But additionally, like I mentioned, using Seesaw is a way that we're going to connect those buddies even before you start as well. So we're excited for that. I hope that answers. I think Neil answered the questions around recess and lunch, but also our protocols around vaccinations for all staff, and currently following health orders, when we'll receive the form for uniforms, and also when we'll receive the orientation packs. Great question. So we've been discussing this as a kindergarten team as well. Traditionally, you would get that orientation bag. So it's not just, I guess, forms and paper, but we actually put some fun things in there. So on a normal year, you'd be getting that on that first orientation morning. At this point in time, we're looking at sending you the PDFs of the booklet. So you've got the orientation booklet, the uniform form, you have those things sooner. And then we'd be giving the physical bag to you on that first time that you come to the school. So that it would be hopefully that orientation morning, which we had planned. So I hope that answers the question.
There's a question in the chat, sorry, the Q&A, which is a good one, which is around you mentioned no hugging of students from teachers. If my child is really upset and is someone who needs that physical touch, how will you comfort them as a teacher? So maybe Ms. Bahaji, do you want to answer that?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have class pets, which are a whole bunch of stuffed animals. It is actually one of the trickiest things in that first period of how we can comfort our children without hugging them. So we respect their personal space, but if a child wants to saddle right up next to us, we'll happily be there and support them. And also we have a lot of stuffed animals in the classroom, and we give them identities and personalities, and our children are really good at hugging them. Buddies are also, with consent, allowed to give hugs.
Yeah, it's not as cold as it sounds. Like, we don't give hugs. There's a lot of love, and definitely if your child is upset, then we will of course be there to comfort them.
We're good at band-aids, we're good at side hugs, we're good at loving language, we're good at stuffed animals. Your child will be really well cared for. And if that's a conversation that you would like to have privately with us about an individual child with specific sensory needs, and we can talk about conversations around consent about that if that's something specific for your child. But overall, teachers don't hug children.
Great. And then we do have another question about just the recording. So we've been making, which is another real positive about this time, a bit of a silver lining, is that we've been recording these sessions. So we'll do a bit of a trim, and then we'll make that available on our website and send you a link as well. So were there any other questions, Neil, that you could see? This is fantastic to get the questions, because if you're thinking it, probably other families are as well.
I did see a question about quiet time in there. Somewhere in the feed earlier on.
Yes, very early on, there was a question which was around, yes, exactly. It was around opportunities for them to have practice mindfulness, etc. And I kind of thought you answered that very well in your resilience talk in terms of how you would be interweaving that. And yeah, of course, that the reality is that the structures within and rituals within those classrooms is very different to perhaps what you'll see in a year 6 classroom. And obviously it's all part of that transition through primary school years, but definitely a very calm atmosphere in those classrooms. So it's very beautiful. It's been so nice to get them back.
Yeah, I can't wait. We also have quiet spots in all of our classrooms. So we do have play corners. We have corners that get theme-based, like restaurants or cafes, or Christmas shops is what we're about to go into, building our elf's house. And you might have seen in one of the photos, there was some boys in a tent. So we do have spaces and places that we can set up if we do have children who need a little bit of extra space, or maybe a space to calm their glitter and calm down. We definitely provide that. And we follow the needs of the children. So if we've had a really big day and we can see that everybody needs some quiet time, I know I've watched by Mrs. Palmer-Bell's class, and we sometimes be doing some quiet reading, or some resting our heads, or some mindfulness, or some yoga. And we definitely, we're following our curriculum, but we're also following the needs of our children.
I can't see who asked that question, but you might be interested in looking up the 7 habits. So that's one of our wellbeing programs that we have at the school. And when you talk to mindfulness, the 7 habits is something that we teach as part of our PDHP program. And you might be interested. There'll be a bit of information about the 7 habit program, The Leader in Me, that we have at our school in the orientation pack as well. So
it's habit number 7.
Interesting.
And it's about nourishing the heart and the soul.
We are focusing on that in year 1 in our distance learning this week. So unless there are any more questions, Neil, have you spotted any more? We might.
Sally, there is one more.
Yes, great.
There's one in the Q&A. Is it one teacher per class, or are there also teachers' aides in classrooms?
Great question. So across our school, we have allocated 1 teacher per class. However, we also do have job shares. So at the moment, my class is 1-2G, and I have a teaching partner, Mrs. Collins. So she's on the class 3 days a week, and I'm on 2 days. So sometimes there are job shares. And then from your question, you're asking about teachers' aides. So we do have, currently we've got 1 SLSO, a student learning support officer, Mrs. McKinley, working with students across the school. So she's often out in the playground. She works in our classes across the school with some children more than others where the need is. And that's part of our learning support like our learning support team and our learning support processes at the school. So we don't have one SLSO in every classroom. And we do also have, I mentioned before, our RFF program. So your children will also get to know our music teacher, Mr. Taylor. They'll visit the library with a teacher. We also have an external sports program that we often will get in. So they do get to know other teachers within the school. So they won't just have one teacher.
It's also worth mentioning as well that the kindergarten team works very closely. So you'll be seeing lots of working together in that. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, too, other schools might advertise that they have a teacher and a learning support teacher in each classroom. The schools that mention that often have children, up to 30 children in a classroom. We're really lucky. We're at a small school and we are at a department school. And so our numbers in our classroom are quite small. And that allows us to have one teacher in the classroom and not need necessarily to have a teaching aide. So this year in our classrooms, our numbers are at around 16 or 17 or 18 per class. And that really lets us get to know your children as individuals. We also, like Dr. Lavitt said, we work really closely. So a lot of kindergarten lessons and learning are done all together in a group. And that's definitely what the first couple of weeks of school will look like. So your children will come home with a teacher piece of paper that will tell you their teacher's name, but they will say the names all mixed up. So it might be Mrs. Bahaji from Marmarville, for example, this year. Was our names, yeah? So yes, we work closely together, and we are definitely a kindy team.
Yeah, and I think you've probably heard that in some of the videos. It was my teachers. They refer to it as the teachers, and it's not even just the kindergarten teachers. We work so closely across the school. It is that small school feeling, and they'll get to know each of the teachers on duty and in the playground. So. That's all part of being at Cronulla South Public School.
It's great that Miss Bahaji mentioned that about teacher's name. I remember the very first year I started teaching. Well, it was just a little bit of a temporary block I had at a school, and I had a kindergarten child in the class that called me Mr. Loveheart. So there you go.
I love that. Fantastic. I'm going to call you that. Next time we're in front of the kids, they'll love it. All right. I think we're getting there with the questions, but again, if we're here to help. So there's also, if you haven't completed the student profile, there is a question section at the end. Obviously, this isn't the time to ask specific questions about your child, but we definitely can address those in the enrollment interview and also part of transition.
Yeah, be really honest in those. They are judgment-free. So we aren't looking those judging you or your children, but if you can give us the most honest answers to those questions, then we can really start seeing your child for who they really are.
Awesome. Well, I'd just like to say thank you to my colleagues for coming along and spending this time, and thank you so much for coming along as well, the families at home. So we'll leave you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. We can't wait to see your faces in person.
Looking forward to meeting you all.
Thank you.